Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I start by saying my thoughts are with all those injured in the rail collision last Friday. I was deeply saddened to learn of the death of the driver of the Corby to St Pancras train. His family have requested privacy, and we should all respect that. I send my deepest sympathies to them at this awful time. My thoughts are also with those injured in the appalling attack in Edinburgh, which appears to be motivated by anti-Muslim hatred. Mr. Speaker, let's be clear, in this country, an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. We will not stand for it, and the perpetrator will face the full force of the law. Let me commend our emergency services who responded to both incidents with outstanding bravery and professionalism in very difficult circumstances. Mr. Speaker, one of the greatest privileges of leading this country is meeting our armed forces, celebrating their work and marking Armed Forces Week. And I want to thank them all for their dedication, their courage and sacrifice to protect our way of life. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. I shall have further such meetings later today. Not today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And can I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks? Prime Minister, the National Cancer Plan is something that your government can be really proud of. Cancer patients in Wokingham and across the country cannot afford for it not to be implemented or regularly updated. Will the Prime Minister leave a lasting legacy and support my Cancer Private Members Bill to ensure that future governments remain accountable for delivering its targets and ambitions?
Well, can I first recognise his personal experience and pay tribute to his campaign? I'm incredibly proud of the National Cancer Plan, which sets out how we're ending the postcode lottery with more cancer specialists, paying the travel costs of children travelling for cancer care and investing in technology to drive research into rare cancers. Thanks to our record investment in the NHS, we've the shortest waits for cancer diagnosis on record. He'll be pleased to know that in his constituency, waiting lists in his local care board are down by 40,000. That's thanks to a Labour government and Labour decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Max Hall is 14 years old. He should be worrying about school, football, friends and what he wants to be when he grows up. Instead, he is living with a high-grade brain tumour and there is no cure available to him. His parents, Jackie and Stephen, want to know, why are children still being diagnosed with brain tumours and told there's no treatment options available? Why has brain tumour research remained so underfunded when brain tumours kill more children and adults under 40 than any other cancer? And why are families like them left to search for hope themselves? This Prime Minister has done so much to strengthen our NHS. So does he agree with me that we need to move at pace and do much more to offer hope to Max and his family and families like his facing this unequally devastating disease?
Can I just say my thoughts, and I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House, are with Max and his family in what must be the most awful of circumstances. Through our Cancer Trials Accelerator programme, we'll make it easier to launch innovative new clinical trials and find new treatment. And for people like Max, that will mean make young people's cancer a research priority, make clinical trials more accessible and pay for his travel costs for care. I hope that comes as some comfort, but as a parent I can't imagine what his family are going through given the circumstances that he faces. And I know that a minister will be happy to meet Max and his family.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I associate this side of the House with the Prime Minister's remarks on the horrific train crash, the attacks in Edinburgh and, of course, Armed Forces Week? I want to start by congratulating the Prime Minister. He's the other party leader who won a by-election last week. Although I think I'm much happier with my new MP than he is with his. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister told the House that the government was funding defence and everything was under control. The very next day, the Defence Secretary resigned. saying the Prime Minister was unable and the Treasury unwilling to fund the defence of our country. What changed?
Well, Mr. Speaker, she references the by-election. I'm very pleased with our new Member of Parliament. Can I also say to her, in Gorton and Denton, the Tories got 1.9% of the vote. Can I congratulate her, because in Makerfield, they got 2.2% of the vote. Just edging past Count Binface. She says they're winning everywhere. At that rate, it'll take them 500 years to get back into power. Mr. Speaker, meanwhile, back on these benches, we've delivered the biggest sustained boost to defence spending since the 1980s. That's £270 billion over this Parliament. That, Mr. Speaker, is a record. The Defence Investment Plan will take that even higher. That's about facing the future. We'll finalise the plan with the Defence Secretary and we'll have it published before the NATO summit.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Prime Minister forgot to mention that in Aberdeen South we got 50%. And he says that he's funding defence. The truth is, he wouldn't be in this mess if his Chancellor had found money for the Defence Investment Plan. The Prime Minister gave her the second most important job in Britain. She was the first female Chancellor. She lives next door to him, but wouldn't even come out to stand by him during his resignation speech. She was too busy getting ready for a selfie with the new leader. Does the Prime Minister feel let down by his Chancellor?
This is the Chancellor who ended austerity inflicted on our country for 14 long years. This is the Chancellor who got the economy growing, Mr. Speaker. She doesn't normally want to talk about the economy. That's because in the first quarter of this year, the UK had the fastest growing economy in the G7. Our growth was upgraded by the IMF and the OECD. Last week, unemployment was down. Inflation was better. That is because with this chance we have the right economic plan and we can weather the global storms in the war that she wanted to jump into.
Mr. Speaker, they're cheering so loudly. If it's all going so fine, why is he resigning? The fact is, she did let him down. She's the one who snatched the winter fuel payments. She's the one who announced a disastrous budget that killed economic growth. And because of her, once again, a Labour Prime Minister is leaving office with unemployment higher than when he came in. But the Chancellor isn't the only person who let him down. The Energy Secretary is putting up bills and killing jobs. He's not here, is he? He was a failed Labour leader, rejected by the electorate, brought back from the wilderness by this man, and when the going got tough, he jumped into bed with the Mayor of Manchester. It's not the first time he's betrayed someone close to him, is it? But does the Prime Minister think that this treachery should be rewarded by being appointed Chancellor?
Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor and I picked up our party 6 years ago from the worst defeat since 1935. We turned it around and we made it face the country. And we won a landslide general election, giving them the biggest drubbing in their history. To this Chancellor, we've delivered the fastest fall in NHS waiting list for 17 years. We've the money for new rights for renters and working people, and we're lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. Mr. Speaker, the test for every Prime Minister is handing over the country in better shape than you found it. I know I can do that, which is more than can be said for her predecessor, her predecessor's predecessor, and her predecessor's predecessor's predecessor.
Mr. Speaker, once again I have to ask, if it's all so fantastic, why is he resigning? And I think it is very generous of the Prime Minister to stick by his ministers, because they didn't stick by him. He can say what he likes, but the people of Aberdeen gave their verdict. They gave their verdict on his Energy Secretary by voting Conservative. But to be fair, Mr. Speaker, to be fair, they're not all traitors and deserters. Some of his cabinet have been loyal. loyal and incompetent. Hands up if you think the Education Secretary is doing a good job. Even she doesn't think she's doing a good job, Mr. Speaker. Even she doesn't think she's doing a good job. Someone did. Just for those who raised their hands, the two people who raised their hands, yesterday a poll found that 0% of teachers think the Education Secretary is doing a good job. 0%. She taxed private schools to pay for more teachers, but the number of teachers has gone down. Yeah. It turns out appointing a spiteful class warrior as Education Secretary was a disaster. Yeah. Does the Prime Minister agree? Does the Prime Minister agree that he has been let down by her incompetence?
Prime Minister.
The Education Secretary grew up in poverty. She knows exactly what it means to grow up in poverty. She was once reluctant to tell her story. I know her story. It's an incredible story of social mobility and success. I am so proud that she is sitting there, and so should everybody in this country who cares about social mobility. She knows that for poor children, education is absolutely vital, and that is why it drives every single priority and value that she has. I would have thought the party opposite would recognise and understand some of that, but they've fallen so low they don't.
Mr. Speaker, the fact is that if she knew so much about poor children, she wouldn't have given them fewer teachers. Teacher numbers have gone down. Teacher numbers have gone down. It's amazing. I've never seen this much excitement on the Labour benches. Yes, cheering so loudly while there are 400 knives stuck in his back. Shame on them. Shame on them. They don't like it up them, but they know that what I'm saying is true. And, Mr. Speaker, there were times when the Prime Minister tried to do the right thing. He did try to cut welfare. And who stopped him? Those MPs behind him. In the words of the Welfare Secretary, his MPs only want to know who they can tax to fund more benefits. They are not Labour MPs, they are welfare MPs. Does the Prime Minister feel betrayed by the people he got into Parliament?
Sorry, Prime Minister. Can I just say, let us think about the language we're using. I think that'll be the first to leave, please. Can I just say, think about the language we're using, because when we leave this chamber, don't be surprised when constituents feel they can use the same language against each other. Let us show a little bit more decorum and respect to each other. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was trying to do all of this with as much good grace as I could, but I shall certainly miss these exchanges. I'm very proud of every one of our MPs who, with a landslide Labour victory, coming from all different backgrounds, from all different places across the country. We inflicted the biggest loss on the Tory party opposite in the history of their party. We picked up our party, we turned it around. We had to address what went wrong. We turned it around. We won a landslide victory. She won't even address or even talk about their failure after 14 long years.
Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, he is the one who is resigning because of his MPs. There's no point trying to distract from it. And let's be honest, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has made many mistakes. Otherwise, he wouldn't be going. But he has also been let down. I'm only saying what his staff have been briefing. He has been let down by an energy secretary who is killing industry, let down by a chancellor who is killing jobs, let down by backbenchers who don't understand that government is about tough choices. He U-turned again and again and again to appease them, and now they've abandoned him. And what for? A pair of eyelashes and a black T-shirt. Isn't the truth that whoever is in charge, Mr. Speaker, isn't the truth that whoever is in charge, the real problem is the Labour Party?
Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago I walked into Number 10 and found a broken economy, broken public services and broken trust in politics. Because of our decisions, my decision, the country is moving in the right direction, a stronger and a fairer Britain, ending austerity, investing in our public services, the fastest fall in NHS waiting lists for 17 years, more rights for workers, more rights for renters, standing with Ukraine, Britain's reputation restored and 500,000 children being lifted out of poverty. Change promised by a Labour government, fought for by a Labour government, change delivered by a Labour government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My Hendon constituency is proud to sit at the heart of the UK's largest Jewish community in the London Borough of Barnet. But today, many of my constituents, many of that community, are living in fear. In northwest London, in recent months, we have seen Jewish charities firebombed, synagogues attacked, Jewish people stabbed in the street, and all that against the backdrop of a daily drumbeat of abuse and intimidation. I know everyone on these benches is determined to defeat this despicable hatred, and I welcome the actions the government is taking to root out the poison of our anti-Semitism. Can the Prime Minister tell this House what the government is doing, not only to protect the Jewish community in Hendon and Barnet, but to make sure we can live full and proud Jewish lives free from fear?
Well, I thank him for his question. Anti-Semitism is a poison. And that is why I drove it out of the Labour Party. In government, we're acting to drive it out of society. New powers to ban repeated protests, new plans to root anti-Semitism out of our schools, universities and the health service, and new prescription-like powers to clamp down on malign state activity which incites hatred and violence. And we will take further steps. I'm proud to lead this tolerant, decent country and will always fight for the security, safety and freedom of British Jews.
Sir Ed Davey, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I associate myself and my party with the Prime Minister's remarks about the horrifying train crash in Bedford and the appalling attacks near a mosque in Edinburgh? Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. And can I mention, Mr. Speaker, today's review of Nottingham's maternity services, which is truly shocking. I hope the government will rise to this moment and implement Donna Ockenden recommendations in full without delay. Mr. Speaker, can I also recognise how difficult it was for the Prime Minister to make the statement he did on Monday? It's an important reminder, as we debate issues robustly in this House, that we are all human, and it's something that everyone should remember. Mr. Speaker, as we all know how hard it is when relationships break down with close friends and allies, when even our next-door neighbour barely speaks to us some of the time, has the Prime Minister's experiences opened his eyes to the need to rebuild Britain's relationship with our European friends and allies? Will he advise the right honourable gentleman, the member for Makerfield, to put his EU red lines in the past and adopt our plan for a new growth and defence partnership?
Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of the fact that we've reset our relationship with the EU and we're bringing it closer together. That is in the best interests of our country, and I know he understands that. And I know that, like me, he's been reflecting on his own career. Given that he had revelations, he turned down a job with MI6. I think the whole House will be wondering what might have been. 00 David.
Sir Ed Davey.
Mr. Speaker, it's very tempting to respond to that, but I've signed the Official Secrets Act. But I have to say, on Europe, when history looks back at the Prime Minister's time in office, I fear that clinging to those old red lines will be judged a mistake. But, Mr. Speaker, moving on, as we swelter through this dangerous heat wave, we see the damage caused by extreme weather and climate change. Schools closed, travel chaos, lives at risk, massive costs to our economy and society. And with our Met Office already warning that future summers will regularly break 40 degrees at even greater human and financial cost, is he alarmed that some parties in this House still follow Donald Trump with policies to send temperatures soaring even higher? So will the Prime Minister warn his successor not to listen to Conservative and Reform voices and instead back our plans to cut bills and tackle climate change.
Can I thank him for raising climate change, because it is one of the most significant challenges of our time, and the weather today reminds us just how important it is. And it used to be common ground across this House, actually, that climate change was the generational challenge, and common ground that the UK should be a leader globally on it. And I remember not so long ago the party opposite leading in the COP summit, something that we were able to support. It is a shame that in order to chase reform votes, they've changed their mind, and we haven't got that consensus across the House. But I will always maintain that we must be global leaders on climate change, and we always will be.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning, a mature street tree fell on my house. No one was hurt, but it is another reminder of the results of this extreme heat that we're facing. Today is the hottest June day ever on record. Extreme heat and flooding are becoming more normal, and the government need to stay ahead of this, in our homes, in our workplaces and in our farming. As Chair of the Environment APPG, I'm conducting an inquiry into government preparedness. Can the Prime Minister tell the country what actions he is taking to step up our resilience?
Well, thank you for a question, and it's clear that severe heat waves are evidence that climate change is impacting our country. And we've been working, Mr. Speaker, to coordinate the response, and I urge people to follow the guidance from the Health Security Agency. We're making our country more resilient for the future by modernising building regulations so homes are cooler and better ventilated, building 9 new reservoirs to protect water supplies, and investing record amounts in flood defences and sustainable farming. While Labour is doing that, Tories and Reform want to rip up the Climate Change Act. That is the wrong approach for our country.
Ms Savile Roberts.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Lefarydd. The end of the Prime Minister's premiership comes close on the heels of the end of Labour's 100-year dominance in Wales. People simply didn't feel that his party stood up for them, and it's irrefutable that this too is part of the Prime Minister's legacy. There is a tradition, I believe, of leaving notes on desks for successors. So, will he leave a useful note to the incoming Prime Minister that respect and understanding go a very long way, and that democratic choices, including those of devolution, can't be dismissed?
I shall leave a note saying what we delivered for Wales in these 2 years was the largest ever devolution settlement, the UK's first small nuclear reactor in Anglesey, investing £14 billion in Welsh Rail, a pay rise for 170,000 workers across Wales, and I'll end the note by saying we're lifting 70,000 Welsh children out of poverty. Keir Starmer.
On the bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent, Jake McGregor Howe, a 16-year-old with everything to live for, has been diagnosed with Friedreich's ataxia, a rare neurodegenerative condition which is cruel and swift-acting. The average life expectancy of people diagnosed is just 37. Despite the NHS's founding principle being that care should be based on clinical need, not ability to pay, Jake's father is crowdfunding to pay for treatment in Germany with a new drug omavaloxolone, which has received clinical approval here but is not available through the NHS. Assessment by NICE has stalled. The condition is not classed as an ultra-rare disease, yet is rare enough that any drug to treat it will struggle to meet NICE cost-effective criteria. So the family constantly have to raise enough money to pay for each round of treatment. And shockingly, Jake has recently undertaken a PIP assessment and been turned down for much-needed support. Families should never have to crowdfund for treatment abroad for a life-threatening disease. So will the Prime Minister arrange for me and other colleagues who have constituents with this cruel condition to meet the Health Secretary and discuss a way forward?
Can I start by sending my best wishes to Jake and his family? The changes we've made to the way NICE evaluates medicines is already increasing access to innovative new medicines. I will make sure that she gets the chance to meet the Health Minister to discuss Jake's case and the related issues.
Sir Desmond Swin.
Mr. Speaker, I hope there's still time in which the Prime Minister will be able to enlighten his party as to the moral of the cautionary tale of Jim, who ran away from his nurse and was eaten by a lion?
Well, can I thank the right honourable gentleman? He's always most generous. And, Mr. Speaker, I'll never forget that just a few years ago I went on holiday in his constituency with my family, and I was in the kitchen of the place we were renting when somebody leant through the open door, and it was the right honourable gentleman with a bottle of champagne saying, "Welcome to the New Forest." And then he took time to speak to my family, including my wife's elderly father, and to my children. I thank him for his generosity in that.
Paula Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the Prime Minister for his leadership. One of the concerns that I hear most often from my constituents across Erdington, Kingstanding, Castlevale and South Oscott is about the rapid growth of exempt accommodation. Properties refused HMO licences in my constituency and across Birmingham are opening anyway as exempt accommodation, with very little scrutiny, which undermines local community and decision makers. Will the Prime Minister... Sorry, I've forgotten what I was going to say. Will the Prime Minister confirm when will this new legislation be brought forward, and will it fill the loopholes? Also, will this legislation and its regulations be applied retrospectively so that communities like mine are protected?
Can I thank her for her question? And everyone deserves a safe place to call home. The Housing Secretary has the power to introduce locally led licensing and will consult on these regulations in the summer. Under our proposals, national standards for supported housing will be enforced by local authorities. I'm proud of the action that we've taken to back renters, abolishing Section 21 evictions, expanding the Decent Home Standard and Awab's Law to cover the private rental market.
Jack Rankin.
Mr. Speaker, the first duty of His Majesty's Government, indeed the Prime Minister's first duty, is the defence of the realm. The Prime Minister is not responsible for the worsening geopolitical situation, but he is responsible for this country's reaction to it. It is imperative that we can outline to our allies at the Ankara NATO summit early next month how we will meet that situation. There were reports yesterday that he was being pushed to delay again the Defence Investment Plan by the new member for Makerfield's Outriders. Will he confirm to this House that he will push ahead with its publication, confirm that it is fully funded to the level the Chief of Defence Staff said is required, and not to the level his former Defence Secretary resigned over, and in doing so, fulfil his first duty to defend the realm?
That's the first duty the last government spectacularly failed at, because they hollowed out our armed forces. We've already delivered the biggest sustained boost in defence spending since the 80s. That's £270 billion over this Parliament. We will increase that with the Defence Investment Plan, which will be published before the NATO summit.
Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following last Friday's train collision south of Bedford, the emergency response from Bedfordshire Police, British Transport Police, Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Service, the East of England Ambulance Service, Magbas Air Ambulance and other counties' air ambulances, our local NHS hospitals and, of course, railway staff. Their response was swift, professional, compassionate in supporting those who were impacted, especially in such distressing circumstances. This was public service at its best. Will the Prime Minister join with me in thanking all of those involved for their outstanding work in the aftermath of this tragic incident?
Can I thank her and the thoughts of the whole House with the family of the driver who lost his life and those that were injured, some of them extremely seriously. Mr. Speaker, on Saturday I spoke to the CEO of the East of England Ambulance Service to thank his team for their professionalism in responding. And we talked through the nature and the scale of the challenge that they faced in relation to that crash. They were outstanding in the most difficult of circumstances. And by the time I called him on Saturday morning, he assured me they were all back at work and they were all back on duty, dealing with whatever else might happen that weekend, having delivered those that needed to be delivered to the hospitals. I found that humbling. It is a real tribute to those that responded, as they always do, including, I must say, the local community in this case. But I also want to thank the brilliant NHS staff who are still caring for those who are seriously injured.
Mr. Speaker, my children, like millions others, are kicking every ball of the England World Cup campaign. But I, as a parent, are really concerned about their security in this country, along with other Muslim parents. Let me explain why. When a Sikh lady got raped in Warsaw, the perpetrator repeatedly called her an effing Muslim bitch. Whilst there was no condemnation from the Minister from the dispatch box, no outcry from members in this chamber who openly call out these matters when the perpetrators are of a different colour. When we had the Unite the Kingdom march calling openly for the expulsion of Muslims in this country, there was no ministerial statement condemning such statements. When this weekend we had 5 members of the Muslim community stabbed on the streets of Edinburgh, there was no ministerial statement of condemnation, no Cobra meeting and no solidarity. Can I ask the Prime Minister, what does this silence say to my children as they wait with abated breath for Harry Kane to bring it home?
I want his children to feel safe in this country, and I will do everything to make sure that they are. We will all fight anti-Muslim hatred with everything that we've got. An attack on one is an attack on all of us. That is what I said at the top of PMQs, and I hope he heard it.
Mr. Speaker. The coal industry social welfare organisation CISWA. It's a miners' charity that was established in the 1920s to support the miners in their communities. It's carried out some incredible work with some incredible employees, but the current leadership team is increasingly detached from its founding principles. Miners' welfare, sporting facilities, community facilities have been allowed to rot, they've been allowed to close with little or no support from CISWA, the charity. And at the same time, CISWA has amassed £30 million in the bank. 30 million, Prime Minister. Does the Prime Minister agree that it's time that the charity faced not only a Charity Commission inquiry, but also a serious reform into the policies, the practices and finances, and should benefit the former mining communities it was founded to serve, instead of constructing a £30 million ivory tower for the future?
Can I thank him for raising this important issue? I know members across the House have raised issues with the organisation directly. It is imperative that these communities are listened to. I understand that the Charity Commission has opened a compliance case. I'll get that confirmed for him. I'm proud that this government has stood up for mining communities, including ending the injustice of coal pension schemes, increasing the pensions of over 150,000 former British coal employees, and I thank him for raising this case.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. US big tech has exploited us for far too long. So I'm delighted that the Met Police followed my advice and pushed Apple and Google to implement the stolen handset blacklist, curbing resales and cutting mobile theft by almost half. Likewise, does the Prime Minister agree it's time to stand up to social media companies and reclassify them from platforms to publishers, holding them responsible for the harmful and addictive content that they recommend, promote and profit from?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank him for his question. He will have seen the action we're taking in relation to social media. The social media ban for under-16s, which has been welcomed by families across the country, strengthening the Online Safety Act to tackle intimate images, abuse and cyber flashing, and closing loopholes in chatbots, and taking on Grok. But there's more to do.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Aldershot and Farnborough, thanks to this Labour government, this week, we are bringing the National Armed Forces Day celebrations back to the home of the British Army. Yay! But in a week when we salute those who have served and are serving our country, elderly Gurkha veterans were assaulted in the park by our war memorial and told to go home. Will the Prime Minister and the House join me in standing against this despicable attack and commend the heroism of our Gurkhas? And does he agree with me that now is the time to resolve the long-standing issues on Gurkha pensions, as we have been working towards, because the Gurkhas have given so much for our country?
Can I thank her for her question? She's a great champion for our armed forces, and the fact that the national celebrations are returning to Aldershot this week are a testament to her campaigning. The racist attack she describes is utterly disgraceful, and I condemn it, and I hope the whole House will condemn it. We stand with our Gurkhas, who have made an incredible contribution to our armed forces and continue to do so. Mr Speaker, on Gurkha pensions, ministers have met her, veterans and the Government of Nepal for constructive discussions. These will continue, and I pay tribute to her for her dedicated work on this.
And there we will leave Prime Minister's questions for this week. We'll keep an eye on it and bring you anything of significance if and when that happens. Let's introduce my guests for this part of the programme. We are joined by Baroness Jenny Chapman, International Development Minister, Andrew Griffith, who is the Shadow Business Secretary, and Henry Zeffman, the BBC's Chief Political Correspondent. Henry, I suppose we've seen Kemi in this role for quite a long time, Kemi Badenoch. No surprise she put the boot in.
Well, look, it's a weird dynamic, isn't it, frankly, because Keir Starmer is still doing PMQs. He's probably got 2 or 3 more of these to do, slightly depending on when things exactly happen and when he goes to this NATO summit that was referred to a few times. And even though we have got a bit more used in recent years to these interregnum PMQs, as we've had quite a few prime ministerial handovers, it's a strange dynamic. And I think there will be a debate about whether Kemi Badenoch got her approach quite right, just because, well, no, in particular because Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Commons Speaker, seemed to intervene to question some of the language she was using towards the end. But look, certainly that's not the last time you're going to hear the Conservatives and others drawing attention to the unusual fact that the Prime Minister, for a little while longer, is sitting or standing in front of and alongside people whose withdrawal of support from him is ultimately the reason why he's leaving office, most probably in about 3 weeks' time.
And Andy Burnham, as far as we know, wasn't in the chamber, we don't think.
No, he wasn't. And look, you can see why, because if he had been, I'm sure Kemi Badenoch would have rapidly adapted her questions to draw attention to the fact that the near-inevitable next Prime Minister was there. It will be interesting to see, by the way, if he does go into the House of Commons chamber much over the next few weeks. You don't get a maiden speech if you're returning as an MP, but you can, of course, start asking questions, start giving speeches. There's all sorts of issues where lots of Labour MPs, as well as the public, want to know more detail from Andy Burnham about what exactly he would do as Prime Minister. And it might be that different parliamentary debates, depending on what's on the agenda, give him the opportunity to do that.
Andrew, just before I talked to Jenny about all of that, I mean, do you think Kemi Badenoch got the tone right? I heard some Tories, some Labour MPs, they're saying that she was being spiteful.
Look, I didn't hear all of the detailed exchanges, but in substance, absolutely. And I think what we saw from, I mean, it's a bit surreal. I mean, we saw from the Prime Minister, a lack of humility. No one's all bad. No one gets everything all wrong. But we heard the same sort of repetition, particularly on the economy, that it's all wonderful. And then we heard the same thing about defence. And, a bit more of a balanced scorecard. It's surreal when he says all of that. And yet his own party has roundly ejected him. And that was what I think Kemi was pointing to. We didn't hear any remorse, any regret, any change of course. And of course, we're all still waiting to see what happens on the defence investment plan. It looks like there's an argy-bargy going on even within the front bench of Labour about whether they're going to deliver what everyone would acknowledge is the first duty of government, which is to defend our nation.
Jenny, you chaired Keir Starmer's leadership campaign, I think, didn't you, back in 2020? You're a very close friend of his. His resignation speech on Monday, you were there in Downing Street. That must have been pretty difficult.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend otherwise, Vicky. You work really hard in these jobs. No one ever tells you that government is easy, of course. But when those days come, and, often they do, they are tough. But I think that only really reminds you just how important the roles are at the top of government, especially being Prime Minister. And I thought, actually, there was a lot of humility and honesty in Keir Starmer's words on Monday. I think that was what most people felt. And I think he's right to go to the chamber and defend Labour's record in turning around the economy, in pointing out the shocking state of the economy we inherited and the abysmal neglect of our defence services. I think that's completely fair that he does that. I do think that Ed Davey probably got it more right than Kemi Badenoch did today in terms of tone, and tone does matter. Tone does matter. People do judge you on these things, and she might want to think a little bit more about that.
Do you think it was spiteful? I heard Labour MPs saying she'd been spiteful.
I mean, I didn't hear everything. We were sort of chatting during some of it. I did hear her comments about Bridget Phillipson, which I thought were spiteful, actually. But I don't think Bridget would be bothered by that at all. This is the sort of the rough way that politics is conducted in the chamber. But I think Keir Starmer is very clear. He wants to finish this job that he has until the new leader is chosen. We will have a new Labour Prime Minister. The reason we get to have a new Labour Prime Minister is because of the work that Keir Starmer did in turning the party around and winning a general election. Very, very few Labour leaders achieved that, and he did it in one term. So I personally am very thankful and respectful of the work that he did, and I know many others feel the same.
I mean, do you, as his friend, and does he feel let down, mistreated by his colleagues who didn't support him?
No, I honestly don't think he does. I think that he feels he has given a good account of himself. He has led the party. He has a lot to be proud of. And I think the team around him and the people working with him in Number 10, they all have worked incredibly hard. They should be proud of what they've achieved. Yes, it's come to an end sooner than they would have wished, sooner than I would have wished, if I'm completely honest about it. But here we move forward. You know, we don't do this for our own benefit. We do this for the country. We have duty and responsibility. That's what drives him on. And he will not be a kind of former Prime Minister commentating and sort of trying to drive from the back seat, being a sort of armchair general about this. He wants the next government to succeed. He wants the new leader to be successful because that's what the country needs.
And in the end, his decision, he obviously thought about it over the weekend. What do you think made him in the end decide he had to go?
I think he spoke to Labour MPs, he spoke to members of the Cabinet, and he took the decision that actually if you're going to be Prime Minister, you've got to make difficult choices and you've got to be able to see them through. If you don't have enough support in Parliament to do that, then it's right that somebody who maybe can put the country on the next stage of the journey is able to do that. I think it was...
Did you give him advice? Did you give him advice?
I mean, I'm team fight, but which will shock nobody. But
so you wanted him to carry on?
Oh, of course I did. Yes, but in the end, it's his choice. You know, he's got to do it, and he's the one who's making those tough decisions. Nobody else is. So I think he's taken quite a selfless decision. I think history will judge that kindly. But we do have this. It's a bit of a strange situation for the next 2 weeks, but it's not for very long. And I hope that we can get on with delivering a really good, strong Labour government, because I think that's what the country needs.
Just a couple of hours after that resignation speech in Downing Street, we saw this. Let's have a look. This is the selfie being taken by Andy Burnham with, obviously, dozens and dozens of Labour MPs behind him. I mean, did you find that a bit galling, a bit unseemly?
No, I mean, we do this every time we have a by-election. If we get a new MP.
It's not like this normally, is it?
No, of course. You know, this is different. There's a different atmosphere. There's a different sort of level of expectation around. But genuinely, I've taken part in so many of those photographs as a Member of Parliament where we do want to welcome our new friend into the team. Usually it's because they've never been there before and we want to make them feel welcome. Obviously, this was a bit different.
Did you turn up to this one?
Well, I'm not a Labour MP, so I did not.
I just wondered if, there might have been some other peers there. Just quickly, I mean, Rachel Reeves, as Kemi Badenoch pointed out, didn't come out and stand with you when Keir Starmer made his resignation speech. Do you know why she wasn't there?
No, I don't. But, I don't know. That's for her to answer. But I think people are reading quite a lot into that.
She did turn up to this.
Yeah, but that's OK. That was later in the day. I don't know what her diary was. I think it'd be a mistake to read too much into it. I don't make any judgment about that at all.
Andrew, in terms of where we are now and in terms of what you think should happen, I mean, obviously Keir Starmer is going. Andy Burnham is likely to be the next Prime Minister. Do you think his ideas should be tested with a contest?
Look, it's not for me. I think we've seen the impact of somebody coming into government without a plan. I mean, despite 14 years, that when everyone sits back and says, what could have been different, the government didn't have a plan. By its own admission, it didn't have a plan. And so I think it's going to be very dangerous to think that the next government
we've seen people come in with plans like Liz Truss and they don't work.
That was really successful.
Look, that selfie in Westminster Hall did not look to me like a group of Labour MPs who are ready to take those hard decisions. In fairness to Keir Starmer, he tried to reform welfare and was vanquished. Now, there's a lot of farmers, people in the armed forces, teachers who would have wished that he'd been able to make harder decisions. He's failed ultimately to be able to defend our country simply because his own party, not the front bench, but his own party wouldn't make the tough decisions to fund the defence investment plan, which is why his own defence secretary resigned, which is what triggered all of the events last week. So whoever is governing our country is going to have to be in the business of taking tough decisions. We're deeply indebted. That has been grown up over many years, but Rachel Reeves has added hundreds of billions to the national debt, even in the short period she's been Chancellor. And then anyone who cares about our country, any patriot, wants to see whoever is the leader now be up for those hard choices. And as I say, that selfie in Westminster Hall looked like they've got rid of a Prime Minister who tried to make some hard choices for somebody who's been a mayor who's not been in the business of making hard choices. It's going around, opening ribbons, taking money from central government, but not having to make those trade-offs. That's what worries me, and I know it's what worries the markets. They are worried that somebody's going to make the Chancellor of this country and add even more to the national debt because the Parliamentary Labour Party is not up for those hard choices that, to be fair, Keir Starmer tried and failed to make.
Henry, in terms of Rachel Reeves and her position, it's been made clear, hasn't it, that Andy Burnham is not going to keep her as Chancellor if he becomes Prime Minister.
That's right. And I think, look, on one level, that's not a surprise at all, given he spent the last several weeks explicitly vowing to go to London and change the Labour Party in the country. And I think it's probably hard to symbolise that with the same Chancellor of the Exchequer. But it is still a big moment, I think, just by dint of the fact that obviously she's been Chancellor for 2 years during a period of global economic turmoil, but also spent several years before that changing Labour's economic approach and honing its offer to the country, but also to business, because, of course, it was fairly soon after Jeremy Corbyn had been Labour leader and so on. But look, it gets to the fact that one of the biggest questions now, given the identity of Labour's next leader is near certain, is who is going to be the next Chancellor. And there is an element of personality politics to that, because some of the potential candidates, have their detractors among the Parliamentary Labour Party. But I think the biggest question is, what is Burnhamism, at least in this incarnation when he's in government? Because if he makes Ed Miliband, currently the Energy Secretary, his Chancellor, well, that commits him to a certain political economy over the coming years and decades, if he gets long enough in office, that is rather different to, for example, if he were to appoint Wes Streeting, the former Health Secretary, who's clearly after that job as well. So it's a really important decision, not just for the identity of who would be sitting next to Andy Burnham at most sessions of PMQs.
And there is the question of bringing the party together. I mean, there is going to be some bad blood, presumably. We've heard about James Pennell, haven't we, who some people won't have heard of. You know who he is. What do we know about him and what he might be doing?
He's going to be Andy Burnham's Chief of Staff if Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister. And look, that's important in terms of controlling the Downing Street operation.
So we're just seeing a picture here. Now, this is not a up-to-date picture. This is them back in, I think it might be in the early 2000s, 2007, playing in a football team together. That's Andy Burnham and James Pennell, because James Pennell was an MP and he was a minister as well, wasn't he?
Well, and this is one of the interesting things about this. So James Pennell, talking about what ideology Andy Burnham's government might have, when he was in elected politics up till 2010, when he left Parliament, was very much on the right of the Labour Party. He was a Blairite. He's a former researcher to Tony Blair, in fact, before Tony Blair ascended the ranks. But actually, I'm not sure this is about that. I think it's much more personal than that. Andy Burnham and James Pennell, both special advisers in the first term of the Blair government, both elected in 2001 representing Greater Manchester constituencies. They then shared an office in Parliament, as new MPs often do. They became ministers at the same time. They became cabinet ministers in 2007 together. So I think it's Andy Burnham saying, I want someone who I really trust and who knows my mind as my chief of staff, which prime ministers often want. But look, of course, I think it is interesting ideologically that, Andy Burnham has some pretty left-wing members of the Parliamentary Labour Party in his coalition of support. He also now has James Pennell. The task of unifying that is a pretty daunting one.
We're just going to quickly hear a bit of James Pennell from 2011 on Newsnight talking about welfare.
I'm saying let's order all the things that we care about, and let's see the ones that are most important.
What's at the bottom?
What do we care least about that we're currently paying for?
I think winter fuel allowances. I think free bus passes.
You wouldn't
for
say
people
that if you're an old person who couldn't afford their fuel bill, would you?
I talked to lots of people who are in their 60s, for example, about free bus passes who said I should get this when I'm 70 or when I'm 80.
Jenny, you laughed there.
I did. I don't just love the internet. I mean, I was quite pleased by the news about James, because I think one of the things that any new leader is going to have to do is to really bring the party together. And I think something that Andy has done previously, he served in a cabinet under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, where there were people with hugely diverse opinions that did work together, and they formed a really strong team, and they did a good job as a government. And I think that has to be what he seeks to achieve now. I'm sure that it is, because I think you've got really good people supporting Andy who will want to bring the party together. We have to do this. We were elected. We've got a strong majority, 160 MP majority still. And we've got a lot to do. We've got time to do it. And I think we have to pull together and unite.
But you can just go... What he was specifically talking about there was after he was a minister, about scrapping winter fuel allowance, saying, look, lots of people, they don't care about this. I mean, he was completely wrong, it turns out, because that was one of the first things the government did under Keir Starmer.
I mean, in 2011, he was a commentator, not a political practitioner, and it was 15 years ago. So I wouldn't read too much into it. But it is quite... It's reassuring that there's going to be that diversity of political heritage, so we say, at the top of the party.
And, I mean, Andy Burnham knows he's going to have to calm the markets and all the rest of it, doesn't he? He presumably will come forward with a balanced government.
We'll see. I mean, when asked, he clearly didn't know the fiscal rules. Then he said he did. He promised money to the WASPy women. Then he said he wouldn't. So, look, I think the kindest thing to say is that he's a blank cheque. He's a blank page. He's been a mayor, a very, very different role from the hard decisions that you have to make every single hour.
Well, he was a cabinet minister for a very long time as well.
Every day. He's not been prime minister. He's not been...
No, but he's been a cabinet. It's not... He hasn't...
politics, and the
just
reason
been a mayor. He's been a cabinet minister.
Yeah, correct. But the reason he's been brought back by Labour is because he's a clean skin. He's not been part of those decisions that have been made over the last few years. It's a time for massively important decisions. As I say, the reason we are here today, it may have happened anyway, the reason we're here today is because of the Defence Investment Plan. The NATO summit is starting next week. The Defence Secretary has resigned, saying he doesn't trust the Prime Minister to deliver the defence of our nation. And we have no idea whatsoever what Andy Burnham's approach will be and where he will find the additional £14 billion that the defence chiefs have said are needed in that plan to credibly defend our country. This is not a good place for anybody who cares about good government to be in.
I care deeply about good government. You started these exchanges talking about humility. I would gently suggest to the Tory party that the nation is not quite ready to take lectures from the Tory party on the issue of defence.
Well, don't take them from me. Don't take them from me, Jenny. Take them from your own Secretary of State for Defence, because it wasn't me that resigned a week ago.
Humility. You left us with the smallest army since Napoleon.
Well, all government. No. Let's look. I'm very happy. I'm very happy to. Listen, I'm very happy to acknowledge that.
Please let her make a point. I would like to finish the sentence. But you did that. Chronically underinvested, underpaid, under-equipped, no plans for the investment that we need. We recognise that we need to provide a defence investment plan, which we are working to do, and we will do it before the NATO summit. We've got the biggest sustained increase in funding since the Cold War, since the 1980s. That is in 2 years. We've done that in 2 years. We need to do a lot more, and that is accepted. And the Prime Minister understands that. The Defence Secretary understands that. They will deliver that. Your party, with respect, utterly failed our armed forces from start to finish.
OK, let Andrew reply.
So the trend of reducing the budget in defence started well before the Conservatives came back into office. This is a long-term trend. It was seen across most of the Western European economies. Countries took a peace dividend, and the world changed when Putin went back into Ukraine. And everyone accepts that, Jenny. The issue is that in the face of that challenge and the fact that the government spends £1.6 trillion a year, that this government has ballooned the welfare bill by more than any other, the failure of the government, and I understand you're here to defend them, but the failure of the government that led directly to the ousting of the Prime Minister that you support is because they could not find, the Chancellor refused, and the Cabinet members refused to find the additional £14 billion that the Defence Chief said was needed. And that is not me having a lack of humility. That is your own. Your own Secretary of State for Defence. It's your own Secretary of State, or your ex-Secretary of State for Defence.
Briefly, Jenny, then I want to bring Henry back in.
Because he resigned because of it.
What John Healey said was that he believes our defence services need more money. They are going to get more money. And we have a new Secretary of State, former para. We have a Prime Minister who is determined to deliver this. We will. What we are not convinced by is a Tory party that rocks up having had 14 years.
You're clinging very hard to sort of create a legacy.
Having had 14 years. Andrew, you're a very rude man today.
You're interrupting me.
No, I'm not interrupting you.
The legacy that the country needs
is
a fully funded
There's no point speaking over each other because no one can hear you. I'm going to bring Henry in here to talk about the Defence Investment Plan.
You failed.
Henry, the Defence Investment Plan, the government says it is going to go ahead with it. Is that plausible, realistic, given that obviously the Prime Minister's on his way out?
Look, it's clearly odd in terms of just how the timing falls, but I think the view in government is that the worst scenario here would be to turn up to this NATO summit where all the countries have been asked to come with sort of new defence commitments without this plan having been published. This plan, which, by the way, let's remember, was originally meant to be published last autumn, so long delayed even before John Healey's resignation put a rather large spanner in the works at the last stage. But look, I think Andy Burnham is going to be giving a speech about the economy next week. I assume he will be taking questions from journalists afterwards, and I'm sure people will want to know whether he will commit to enacting the Defence Investment Plan as unveiled by Keir Starmer and Dan Jarvis, the new Defence Secretary, or whether he would want to tweak it afterwards. So it's going to have a weird status, even though I think it is plausible that it gets published by this government.
Jenny, just to come back to you on, obviously, the departure of Keir Starmer. I mean, have you spoken to him since he resigned?
Yes.
And, I mean, how is he taking it?
Better than I would, I think. No, I mean, he's very steady and he knows that he's got a job to complete and he feels quite deeply that he needs to make sure that what follows is successful too. And I think that says a lot about him as a person, that he really wants the next government to succeed and he wants the new leaders to succeed, and he'll do whatever he needs to do to make sure that happens.
And do you think that he will stay as an MP?
Oh, I mean, I haven't asked him that. I mean, he's got to think about that. I know he cares a lot about Holborn St Pancras, his constituency, and particularly the members of his constituency party who've worked so hard to support him since 2015 when he was elected. And I know that does mean a lot to him.
I mean, it's a difficult position, isn't it, being a former Prime Minister on the back benches, because inevitably, as you said, he isn't going to be someone who's going to sit there and try and drive from the back seat.
No, but you know, some former Prime Ministers do that. Gordon Brown did it from 2010 to 2015. Others don't, you know, and it's a decision for them to make. And I think, you know, Keir will turn his mind to that very soon, I'm sure.
Do you think he should have said more in public about his regrets or things, acknowledging things that he did wrong?
I mean, there's time for that if he wants to. But I think what was important on Monday was to really just be really clear about the decision that he's made, why he's made it. And also I think it is right that he, for the sake of his team and for the sake of those that voted Labour, to say that he's proud of turning the party round, proud of the majority that he won and of the achievements of the first 2 years.
That is all for today. Thank you to all my guests. I will be back tomorrow with more Politics Live. That will be at 12:15 here on BBC Two and iPlayer. Please do join me then.